Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today hosted by Equus, Seagate, and OSNexus. I'm Lauren Grobe, Director of Marketing at OSNexus, and I'll be introducing our speakers today. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that we have a Q&A box down in the bottom bar on your screen, and you can submit questions during the presentation, and at the end we will be doing a Q&A. So I'd like to introduce our speakers now. To start things off, we have Alvin Chu, Vice President of Solutions at Equus. Next, we have Mark Jedrzejek, Channel Staff Engineer at Seagate. And to finish, we have Stephen Umbihacker, CEO and founder of OSNexus. So without further ado, let's get started, and I'll pass it off to Alvin.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you for joining our fairly short webinar today, and I'd like to introduce Equus. Really, first off, very simply, Equus is a full stack solution integrator. For over 30 years, we have shipped millions of systems and servers with a portfolio of technology products and solutions to thousands of our customers worldwide. Our solutions expert today have provided design strategy, integration, deployment, and support to deliver probably the most cost-effective solutions that meet any of our customers' business needs. There are really 6 areas that differentiates us from many solutions providers out there. One of them is advanced compute infrastructure advisory services. I'll explain the 6 different areas. The next one is program management, product solution, supply chain strategic sourcing, deployment installation, as well as digital engagement. So for the compute infrastructure advisory services, what that means is that as a trusted advisor, we help customers like you anticipate any of your technological market trends and accelerate your time to deployment by facilitating and really helping you guide you to that process. Our solutions architects will partner with you to design and deliver the best of breed solutions that it covers multiple products and solutions. Program management is another one. We can save you a lot of time, money, and resources by helping your team with end-to-end coordination from building and developing that product fulfillment solutions all the way to installation and post-install support. That's part of our program management offering. Product solutions and other areas where we provide an extensive value add. What that really means is we provide a product agnostic approach with everything from off-the-shelf system with different integration level from L4 all the way to L10 and L12. L10 is a full system build, L12 is a full rack integration build. We can do system level assembly, multi-rack build, and customized hardware as well as part of that rack deployment. The other area is supply chain and strategic sourcing. What that means for many of our customers is we manage the whole sourcing process. That includes procuring different products from different vendors. We put it all together for you so that you can manage and do your demand planning effectively. Another area where we provide value add is around global deployment and installation. We really make it, or at least try to make it easy for many of our customers to provide a single team, single point of contact to oversee every detail of that on-site delivery, either if it's domestic or international. And we manage all the logistic minutiae so that you don't have to deal and eliminate all the need for extra resources. And lastly is the digital engagement. What that means for many of our customers is a single CRM-like platform that allows you to look at all the different components of that project. So either if it's multiple purchase orders, if you have different products that you're putting together yourself, we can add that documentation, the practice cookbooks that's available for any software integration added to our web portal. You can provide different, purchase order that has different line items. Those are going to be available as well as tracking and shipping information. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we are trying to help our customer be a one-stop shop so that we can manage their deployment easily. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Calvin. Mark Jedrzak, Seagate Technology. I work in the enterprise systems division of Seagate. Most people know Seagate as a hard drive company. We've been selling hard drives for 42 plus years now, about $11 billion in revenue. And we're shipping about 3 zettabytes worth of storage to date. About 37,000 plus employees. We build about 350,000 hard drives a day. What most people don't know about Seagate is we also sell systems. And back in 2014 and 2015, we purchased a few companies, Xyratex being one and Dot Hill being the other. And I think, Steve, if we go to the next slide, we'll see those come up. And those companies, when they were purchased, were 32 plus years old. And a lot of people didn't realize that those companies were the companies that were selling the RAID and JBOD systems to the OEM population. So just about every OEM in the market that was selling storage was actually buying their products from Dot Hill or Xyratex back in those days. And they were putting their logos on those drives or on those systems and drives themselves. We were actually doing the firmware for the controllers as well as the hard drives and the UI. So we made it look like their products as well as bezels and physical attributes of the chassis themselves. So these systems have been in the industry now for over 40 years. About 2 million of these systems sit in the data centers today, still up and running. We have lots of inventory that's out there. These systems are responsible for running the 911 systems across the country. Most of the credit card companies, NASDAQ, healthcare, we are very much in the EDU space. Most of the universities have our products as far as RAID and JBOD systems. We are now selling some of these larger mass capacity storage systems in the EDU space today, with quite a few going across the US and Canada. And so there's a lot of petabyte types of solutions that we're putting together for the EDU solutions. So we do come in many different aspects of a configuration for the storage itself. We can come in a 2U form factor, a 5U form factor, or a 4U form factor. And we have, since we make the hard drives themselves, we also make the enclosures, we make the RAID controllers. These are all based on a Seagate ASIC, the RAID controller itself. We do follow an SBB backplane. So inside the chassis themselves is a storage bridge bay type of backplane. And that allows us to be able to put whatever controller that we want inside the chassis. So we can make these chassis either a JBOD configuration, a RAID configuration, or an AP compute configuration. And what that provides us is with the AP is you have a full server out the back end of the chassis, and then you have your storage out the front, and you can expand the storage down below that. And what we do is we put the OSNexus right on these controllers, and they come with dual controllers. So there's 2 controllers that are in each system, and they have complete failover ability. So they're active, and everything is hot pluggable. And it allows you to have that OSNexus layer sitting in there in that server, and that becomes a wrapper for our enclosures. So now you have the ability to manage and to run everything within these storage blocks and be able to have that software wrapper enclosed or making it a complete solution for you. I think we're on.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
So I'm basically going to go into more detail on what Mark was covering here with this slide, and how QuantaStor really brings all the Seagate hardware together to really help you tackle a lot of those higher education workloads. So we're going to be talking about everything from those NAS workloads that you have around home directories, things like the need for large file stores and object repositories for machine learning, to just simple high performance block storage for your virtualization layer like VMware. So this slide really covers in one slide all the key aspects of the software-defined storage platform. And so I'll start with the thing that really makes it really unique is the grid technology. So the grid technology is a control plane. It basically lets you link all the appliances together, all the systems together, so that you can manage them all as one. And that just really saves you a lot of time in terms of enforcing security policies, being able to track where all your storage is at. So if you've got a campus or multiple campuses and you're deploying storage in different locations, you get to link it all together and manage it as a storage grid. We do a lot of work around security features. So there's KMIP for external key management. It's FIPS certified. It's compliant to HIPAA standards, so you can use it within the medical side if you've got a medical school at the university. So you can just use it in a lot of areas. OSNexus has got customers across government, everything from the Navy to EU government to local government like transit authorities. So just a lot of breadth in the security features, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, all those things that you would expect are in the platform. Hardware flexibility. One of the key things that you really need in a university environment is the ability to deploy a platform on a wide variety of servers. So today we're really focused on these systems from Seagate, these AP platforms, but you can also use other brand of servers with the Seagate JBODs, from the 5U84 to the 106 to the 2U models as well. And so you get this flexibility to build your grid using a broad spectrum of hardware, and you can use new generations of hardware within the grid as those come out. So when like a new Seagate model comes out, you can go and add those systems in as well. And the hardware integration that we do goes deep. It goes down to monitoring power supplies and the thermals, so that you don't have to worry about, hey, how do I keep track of the health of the equipment? It's all tied right into the QuantaStor platform. The next bit is scale up and scale out. So a lot of platforms are one or the other. You can do a scale up config with like a NetApp FAS or a scale out with like an Isilon. QuantaStor does both, and we are able to do that because we use two open source file systems down underneath, and one of them is OpenZFS that we do for our scale up configurations. And for those, we only need 2 nodes. And for scale out, we have a minimum of 4 nodes required for that, and we're using Ceph technology there. So it's all one platform, but you can deploy pools of storage using a scale up or a scale out pool style, and that really gives you a lot of flexibility to tackle a variety of different storage challenges there within your organization. The unified file block and object, QuantaStor delivers NFS SMB for file, iSCSI fiber channel for block, also NVMe over fabrics, TCP for block as well, and of course S3 for object. We do both file and block for both scale up and scale out, but today for object, you need a scale out configuration for that. So this is another view of what the grid looks like. So you can be deploying systems throughout the world. You can put the systems in different data centers. You can have some in Tokyo, London, different parts of North America, and link them all together, and then add management users into the grid and scope them to a role that limits what they can do within the grid to just a subset of the things that you want to give them control over. So you could say, hey, I want it so that this admin can only provision storage from this pool, and I want it so that they can only create network shares and not delete anything. So a really powerful role-based access control system is in the grid with, as I mentioned, features like single sign-on, integration with LDAP and Active Directory. So you get the ease of management to go along with that fine-grained security control. This is just, these arrows here are showing how you can set up remote replication really easily in just a few clicks in the UI. And of course, you can be setting up different clusters with different pools. So you can have a pool here these ones are scale up, doing SAN NAS. You can also have pools that are doing all three protocols, file, block, and object in these scale out examples. So these ones here where it's all flash, scale out, that's a great example of a machine learning type configuration, high performance file system configuration. Whereas this one's more of a scale out configuration for maybe, it's a high density config, maybe for object storage, like a large campus archive. That these different hardware builds let us tackle different workflows and use cases. So this is what the UI looks like. You can see the front bezel in the grid dashboard. You can see all the systems and their thermals and a little bit on the power supply status. All of that is there. And the UI has real-time stats throughout it. So you can click on a device and see, okay, that block device, what's its performance and IOPS. Those dashboards are context specific throughout the UI. And the UI runs in all the browsers. So you can, there's no software to install. You just point your web browser to the IP address of any system that's in the grid. And when you log in, you're able to manage everything. So it really greatly simplifies management. QuantaStor bare metal installs on these Seagate AP servers. The AP servers are AMD 16-core processors with like 256 gigs of RAM. But you can also run them on virtual machines. So if you have like a remote site where you need to set up a NAS box and have that replicate to a home data center, a lot of flexibility because of the software-defined nature of it. What this slide really goes over is the hardware integration at the slot level. So one of the challenges is, how do I find the bad drive when I need to go do some maintenance? Drive goes bad, QuantaStor is going to mark it as red and show in the UI and put an LED beacon icon on it and also activate the LED beacon within the hardware. That makes it really easy to go into the data center, find the drive, it's going to be blinking, you replace it with a new one, and you're off to the races. So real easy maintenance. There's a labeling system within the UI too. You can go and put custom tags on the enclosures so that it's very easy to correlate that with the labels that you have in the data center. So QuantaStor, you can install on the entire line of Seagate hardware, including all the AP units. You can use the entire line of Seagate JBODs with QuantaStor. And you can also use the Core Vault. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Core Vault unit here in a bit. It's a unique system from Seagate that is really has some really cool features around making maintenance easier and rebuilding drives that Mark will talk to. And last, the Seagate Lyve Cloud is a S3 object storage service from Seagate that QuantaStor is integrated with. And what I mean by that is that you can take and create a bucket, an S3 bucket at the Seagate Lyve Cloud. They have 6 different data centers today and are adding them pretty rapidly. When you create a bucket there, you can make it so that it shows up as file storage within your QuantaStor system. And then you can create a backup policy within QuantaStor to take any network share within the grid and have it automatically back up to the cloud into the Seagate Lyve Cloud. And beyond being able to access the object storage as file and doing backups, we also have auto tiering. So you can set a policy that says, hey, when these files are over 3 months old, I just want them to migrate to the cloud so I free up local space on my local NAS system. So a lot of powerful cloud integration features. And QuantaStor's NAS gateway backup and cloud tiering also works with the other S3 cloud service providers like Azure. So if you're using those, you can also use your appliance to tie in with those other cloud offerings. So I'm going to talk a little bit about scale up versus scale out. What are the ideal use cases for those? And so this first slide's on scale up configurations. So it's called the scale up configuration because you start with 2 servers and you basically stay with 2 servers for a given cluster. So you just keep adding more and more storage to it, and you scale up by adding additional disk chassis or JBODs as they're called. That will get you to a certain scale. With QuantaStor, with the grid technology, the neat thing is that you can keep creating more of these clusters and put them all within the storage grid control plane. So it's still very easy to manage when you have multiples of these. But the scale up is really, it hits a performance limit because there's only so much throughput you can get and so many IOPS that you can get through a single server. And that's where we have a second architecture style, which is the scale out clusters. And this is using Ceph technology underneath. And this lets you, set up configurations with scale out, file, block, and object. This is really ideal for use cases like machine learning, for scientific research. So if you've got the physics department that's running software they've developed to go and process a huge amount of data, whether it's from a collider or from astronomy, cosmology data from telescopes. All of that stuff is generally designed around a scale out hardware architecture. Again, the software is the same. And so the neat thing is that you can take scale up systems and then pivot them in the future into scale out. So generally when it's under a few petabytes, we're designing things as scale up. When it's over a few petabytes, we're generally designing things as scale out. And I guess the last thing on the scale up, going back a slide, the all flash configuration is really ideal for databases, virtual machine type workloads. And then the larger ones, you can use that for home directories, as well as like backup targets for Veeam and use cases like that. And let's talk a little bit about scaling out and how that, and well, data protection in general. As you may know, back in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the RAID technologies that were out there were they would always come in like a controller card that you could add to a system. And so over the years, the reliability, the level of data durability has gone way, way up. And the cloud providers really accelerated that. The triple replication to be able to replicate data across multiple sites. Erasure coding really gained a lot of popularity in the last 20 years. And today, what we're doing with Seagate is 2 layers of erasure coding plus the autonomous drive rebuilding. And so let me pass it back to Mark real quickly to talk a little bit about the Core Vault.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So the Core Vault is a system that actually started out back in 2017 with our JBOD. It's the same chassis that we utilize. What we did was we put our RAID controllers in there that house the Seagate ASIC. And because we're Seagate and we manufacture these hard drives and the controllers inside those hard drives, all the firmware and software inside there, we do the same for these enclosures. So the chassis itself and the enclosures have controllers in there, RAID controllers, and it's Seagate IP. So all of the firmware and software and hardware and ASIC that's inside that controller is Seagate owned. So it puts us in a very unique position in the industry. It allows us to have a kind of a conversation between that hard drive and the controller itself. So if a hard drive does have an error or something that's going on with it, the controller can then now assess what's going on with it, maybe stop the power to that slot, reboot that drive up, see if it comes back up. We can start to run diagnostics on it. So if there's an issue, we can remove the data very, very quickly off of that drive because we know where the data is. We're doing erasure coding down at that level. So we're just taking that critical data off of that drive very quickly, moving it throughout the volume where we actually get to utilize all those drives. So those spindles are all spinning and it's a very fast recovery for us. We can then now take that drive and start to run our manufacturing diagnostics on it. See what's going on with the drive, see if there's something wrong with it. If there's a head that may have crashed, we can take that head out of service. If there's a platter that may have been damaged, we can take the platter out of service. So there's different things that we can do, take that drive, fix what's going on with it, and bring that drive back online. So say we start out with a 22 terabyte hard drive. A lot of times there's extra space inside those hard drives that we can utilize because we're Seagate, and we can give you back pretty close to the same amount of space that you're using. So why would you throw away a drive that is 95% working and just send it back and have to rebuild all of that on your system and replace the drive? We can keep that drive healthy in your system, bring it back online, bring the data back onto it, And we do this all inside the box. So there's no network traffic or anything going on up above us. We're going to handle all of that information. And we work hand in hand with OSNexus, and we just pass it back off to OSNexus. And it's like the drive is still available and running, and we'll keep that up in the system and available for you. And that's something we call ADR. It's the autonomous drive regeneration. The adapt itself is our own erasure coding. So as Steve was indicating, we do the erasure coding down at that drive level. He's doing it up in that the application level and the network level as well. So we work hand in hand with each other, and we both notify each other what's going on. So it's a very smooth transition.
Yeah, that combination of having erasure coding within the box and at that upper level of the cluster with QuantaStor, instead of having a solution that's like 5 nines or 6 nines, it goes up to 14 nines of uptime. So it's quite amazing. And the great thing here is the time saved, where you don't have to go into the data center to replace drives as often, because that's a huge time sink for a lot of organizations, is just having to get remote hands in the data center and identify the right drive. And if you can, 50%, 60% of the time, just remanufacture the drive within the box, that can just make it so that, your maintenance costs and your mean time between failure with the drives goes way down. So, or between, just transformative from a maintenance perspective. So what Mark's getting at there, with the double layering, this is really shows in this diagram. So here's the cluster-wide erasure coding, where QuantaStor is setting things up with maybe a 8+3 or 16+3 cluster-wide erasure coding across all the systems. But then within each of the Core Vault boxes, we set it up with 16+2 erasure coding, so you can have any 2 drives fail. And like Mark was saying, the rebuild is super fast within the Core Vault because it's got all the other drives within that group. There's 53 drives per group. They're all working together to auto heal when there's a drive that needs to be rebuilt through ADR. So just fantastic. This double layer of erasure coding just is transformative for these large scale configurations. The minimum configuration for QuantaStor is 4 nodes, so you can do as small as 2 Core Vaults with 4 nodes. But these Core Vaults are quite large. They're around 2 petabytes of storage, so they're really for your large archive type workloads. And that's a common thing, as you know, at universities. You've got postdocs producing lots and lots of data for different STEM departments, and that data needs to be held for a long time. There could be an amount of data there that needs to be online for future processing and shared within different departments. And the benefit of the double layer erasure coding around maintenance is key, but the other key part is the reduction in compute and RAM that's required in the cluster. So Core Vault's reducing the number of hard drives from 106 down to 40 logical drives, and that cuts the CPU and RAM requirements in half. So you end up saving not just a bunch on the storage or maintenance cost, you're actually saving a lot at the bottom line, because the whole cluster cost gets reduced by around 20 to 30%, just due to the consolidation. This last couple of slides, this one just really goes over what I was mentioning earlier about being able to do a NAS gateway to the Seagate Lyve Cloud. You can do that with any of the different units. This is showing an example with like some Dell 1U servers connected to JBODs. And that's just set up via some policies right through the UI. And that's so you can set up a NAS gateway to the Seagate Lyve Cloud. Seagate's Lyve Cloud is an object storage offering that has no egress fees. So one of the challenges that a lot of companies see with other cloud service offerings or S3 storage offerings is that they kind of get they have no predictability in what their bill is going to look like at the end of the month because of the egress fees. With Seagate, they've gotten rid of those. All you pay is for the storage fees, and they're as I recall, they're less than half the cost of AWS. So really interesting service. And it integrates directly into the QuantaStor platform so that you can use that object storage in the cloud as locally as file. And the last bit here is how do you get started in designing these solutions? And so if you go to these links at the bottom here, link.osnexus.com, we've got a Seagate and scale out and scale up configuration. And this is, there's the scale out is for, of course, the scale out configurations, and we've got some various server model bombs. Alvin's team at Equus has been selling QuantaStor for a long time and have a lot of deep skill set with the platform. The best way to really engage with the design, starting the design process, is to reach out to us, reach out to Equus so that we can start the process of figuring out what's the ideal configuration for the workload that you're working on tackling. And then, of course, the scale up one over here, you've got some different configuration options. The two design tools are very similar, but they let you adjust the usable capacity that you need at the top, and then adjust the various hardware configuration options to dial it in to get something that's going to hit the performance and availability requirements that you've got. All right, and this last slide just goes over some time for any Q&A. Go ahead and write any questions you might have to Lauren. And here's some various email addresses, contact points at Equus, Seagate, and OSNexus. And we've been working with Seagate on various materials that really highlight the different configuration options and such. If you go to osnexus.com/Seagate, you'll see a number of brochures that are on there. And if whenever you're ready to really dive in, Kevin McKellingen at equus.com, you can write him and get the discussion started. You can also, of course, contact us through that osnexus.com/Seagate. There's a form at the bottom, and that can also get you going with us. Yeah, Lauren, any questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions. So the first one is, do you support multi-site scale out, and is your replication synchronous or asynchronous?
Yeah, great question. So we're seeing that more and more often these days, is that especially for object storage, that organizations are setting up multiple zones that are bidirectionally replicating. When you set it up with multiple zones with bidirectional replication, or you can set it up with 2, 3, 4 zones that are all synchronizing together, that's all async. So when somebody uploads an object into one site, it gets into a queue, basically a log that indicates these are the things that need to be replicated to the next zone. So you can have a wide area network outage, and when it comes back up, it'll just continue replicating. So, and that works bidirectionally. So you can set it up so that if somebody uploads to a zone in New York, it'll replicate to maybe your zone in the West in California, and it'll synchronize both ways. That's really ideal when the distances are really far between your clusters. But what if you've got a need for something synchronous across a campus? In that case, you can set up 2, 3, 4 different sites and do a stretch cluster, what's often called a metro cluster. And in those configurations, we really go into what erasure coding level is going to achieve the resiliency to sustain a site outage, and that is all synchronous. So when a write comes in for a stretch cluster, it's got to commit to all sites before it comes back, and that's why we require a certain amount of low latency networking for that style of clustering, where it's synchronous versus async, where it can go over wider distances. Yeah, great question.
Great. So this one would be for Alvin. How can Equus help facilitate and simplify deployment?
Yeah, one of the things that we can do, obviously, as a full stack solution provider, what we can do is we can do all the coordination, right? So either that is coordinating, procuring, and sourcing those hardware. So either if you need server as well as compute, so compute along with your storage head nodes, we can facilitate and put it all together ourselves. So we have solutions architects, we have system engineers that will help you put that together. We also have sourcing and procurement folks that will help you facilitate all the ordering of all the different components. We have our production and rack integration team in California that can wire it up, assemble, burn in the system, and put it all together so that we can deliver it as a turnkey solution. What that really means is that when you get your system, we can fully customize and load everything that you need ahead of time so that when you get your system, all you have to do is plug and play. And that's really the one of the areas where we can supply, we can simplify not only the design, but also the sourcing, procurement, as well as the deployment and then the support of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just also want to call out, Equus has just one of the best, manufacturing and burn-in processes out there. They catch things early so that when things arrive, it's really rock solid. So we just really appreciate the engineering team there at Equus and their manufacturing team. They just do fantastic work.
Yeah, often also just want to add one last thing is that often when you want to deploy a storage project, it's probably tied to other projects as well, right? So either, you need to get your networking infrastructure either upgraded or probably reviewed ahead of time to make sure that it's working properly so that when you put network attached storage, for example, in your environment, that it will perform properly. We can help with some of those prerequisite, sort of planning and deployment, pre-deployment work ahead of time.
Great. Kind of a follow-up question to that. What is the customer support like?
So a lot of our support is really actually customized to many of what our customers are looking for. Some of our customers want very specific, SLAs, either if they have a multi-site deployment or a global deployment. What we do for some of our largest customer, for example, that have a global worldwide deployment, it could be hundreds of sites. We can scope that ahead of time to make sure that each site is not only properly supported in terms of if there's hardware issues, that there's hardware spares kit and hardware availability locally so that we can meet those SLAs, or if you need on-site support, we can customize that as well. But we'll take on the first line support for products depending on what our customers are looking for. So in terms of support, we will do end-to-end support depending on what the customer is looking for.
Yeah, and one other add-on to that is just with the OSNexus Seagate solutions, we work hand in hand with Equus. So our OSNexus has a 24/7 global support team. So anytime you have a question on the OSNexus software or you have a support ticket, you can just email support@osnexus.com. That creates a ticket. And you don't need to jump back and forth between us and Seagate and Equus. We're all tied together. So when you open up a ticket with us, we loop in Equus, we loop in Seagate, so that we're all on the same page, and we help triage at OSNexus down to the component level. So if it's a bad drive, we'll figure that out, get the logs over to Seagate, so that you get this one-stop shop type experience, even though it's all three of us working together.
Great.
All right.
Well, that kind of covers all of our questions. So thank you, Steve, Alvin, and Mark for presenting today. And thanks everyone for joining. If you have any questions, there's some follow-up information here, and we'll post this on our YouTube as well. But thanks everyone. Bye.
Have a good day.
Hey, you
Have a
too.
good day.
Bye-bye.